You have a prohibited list, you have a restricted list.
Yeah. You don't have freedom to trade or do business in any industry you wish.
Other 10 limitations, which says what you can go is up to 40%.
What are the provisions or protections provided by the Sri Lankan government and the Sri Lankan legal framework to such investors?
Of investment, you can go with section 17 of the BOI. And also, if there is a property involved in such company, you can't have more than 50%.
What is the guarantee for intellectual property protection within the Sri Lankan framework?
A facilitation of a franchise. You provide authority of
franchise model. I'm the son or the daughter, and my father is a Sri Lankan.
The exception here is that inheritance allows certain amount, the ownership to be transferred.
In case of mergers and acquisitions. Hello, Mr. Dhanushka Medagoda. Welcome to Investigate. How are you?
Very good, Mr. Lahiru. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So, Mr. Dhanushka is, for the audience to know, is an attorney at law. He is the director and owner of a law firm, actually the senior partner and the founding partner, which I will put the details in the description. And he has been servicing both international and local clients for many years. And he is actually a pioneer in certain aspects regarding providing e-law solutions, otherwise giving access, especially to people abroad, easy services through the World Wide Web, which was quite new when he started it. So he's a pioneer in the field, and we are very happy that you are here with us to share your knowledge and experience and expertise. So let me start the interrogation with this first question. Say I'm a foreign investor or a non-resident Sri Lankan, and how would I go about starting to invest in Sri Lanka, either in the stock exchange or either in real estate or starting my own company, so forth. We will go into specifics later one by one, but in general, what are the options, let's say, if you want to start investing in the stock exchange or the bond market?
So basically speaking, if you as a non-resident wants to invest in Sri Lanka, particularly related to Colombo Stock Exchange or bonds, there are designated banking accounts which facilitate such investments, the Colombo Stock Exchange investments, even for government securities and bonds. So one of the key concern that you need to have first in your mind is, what's the type of investment that I'm looking at? So commercial banks in Sri Lanka would facilitate such account opening and also to invest certain bond market, or with the stockbrokers assistance, you can get those accounts connected with the facilitation of a commercial bank in Sri Lanka. Mr. Lahiru, one of the key elements that one need to be mindful is, what's my preference in terms of investment? Is it to invest a company through investment or directly investing it? Most of the bankers have their designated banking types of accounts, which I think we'll discuss further if necessary. But one of the key point here is that you need to be very specific of your requirement. And company is another type of investment. You can set up a company if you wish. And if that's the case, you have different thresholds that you need to be, or criteria that you need to be, fulfilled, which is, comply with the Foreign Exchange Act and the exchange control regulations. So we'll dive into those things, Mr. Lahiru.
So now, let's say, since we have already spoken extensively about how to basically open an IIA account, or also how to invest in Sri Lanka through the CDS or through the stockbrokers, I advise you to watch one of our programs, which I'll display on the screen right now. Let me get into more serious forms of investment. I mean, hands-on forms of investment, not just passive forms of investment, such as starting your own company. So how would you go about, what are the options that a non-resident has, or is there, for example, a difference in the treatment of a Sri Lankan citizen when it before the Sri Lankan law and a foreigner? Is it treated same, or like do we have to meet higher thresholds or more additional requirements?
I think, Mr. Lahiru, it's very much you have to ask one question, that's what's the nature of your business.
Yes.
That's the first question that investors should look into.
Hmm.
If you're a non-resident wants to set up a company, the first question is, what is the nature of the business that I'm intended to do in Sri Lanka? So that governs under the Exchange Control Act. So foreign investors would come under those regulations, foreign exchange regulations, which Mr. Aru, I will share you a PDF of the gazettes notifications, but I will give you the summary of what it is. That will contain what are the permittable credits, permittable debits of a non-resident person's investments.
Okay.
Further, it will list down what are the types of nature of the businesses or the nature of the businesses that a foreigner can invest,
Okay.
or the percentage of ownership that they can have.
So there
So
are,
you
in
have,
essence, limitations as to the nature of the business, as also the ownership stake.
so basically the limitation directly connect with the ownership.
All right.
So the exchange control regulation directly connects the ownership with as a restriction. Assume that you have a controlling ownership of
Okay.
more than X amount of percentage, then you come under that regulation. So you
Right.
have a prohibited list, you have a restricted list. So if you have there will be three prohibited lists, right? Starting with retail trade, which is less than 5 million US dollars, uh, and pawn brokering, and I just have to look into that document,
Yes.
and coastal fishing, right? So coastal, those are the three uh, nature of the business which you are unable to do any form of ownership associated to such nature of the business company.
All right.
So in other sense, it's simple sense, those three nature of the businesses is only for Sri Lankan citizens ownerships. There has to be 100% Sri Lankan citizenships.
All right.
You can't have a foreign shareholder unless such because your exchange control regulation has restriction.
Okay.
And you have another 10 limitations which says what you can go is up to 40%. So
All
if
right.
it's for up to 40%, there would be another 10 restrictive list. So those lists also it's a comprehensive list. So if
All
I may
right.
give you one or two.
Yeah.
So it's productions of goods where Sri Lanka's exports subject to international determined quota restrictions. So then it maximum
Okay.
there's a percentage cap. Growing and primary processing of tea, rubber, coconut, cocoa, rice, sugar, and spices.
So basically, the major export industries or export goods and products are protected
It's,
or restricted.
yeah, it's basically growing and primary processing.
All right.
So if it's growing and primary processing, then only it would be applicable.
But not really value
So,
addition. So you can own a company
yes,
which adds value
yes,
100%.
yes. So
Okay.
there's a restriction. There's a restriction only on the growing and primary processing.
Okay.
Now, this regulation which I'm referring is basically the Gazette Extraordinary dated 2021
Okay.
February 3rd. So I will share you
Brilliant. So what we can
a
do is we will post and these, or we will list these gazettes, this list of prohibitions, restricted natures of business, all in the description, and you'll be able to
yeah.
find comprehensive information. And if that is not sufficient for you, you can always be in touch with me or Mr. Dinushka at any time. So
And
it's not laissez-faire.
basically,
Otherwise,
yeah,
you don't have freedom to trade or do business in any industry you wish, just because you have
yes,
money. Okay.
money.
Is this similar? Are these restrictions only applying to foreign individuals who do not have a residence in Sri Lanka or citizenships in Sri Lanka, or does it equally apply to non-resident Sri Lankans who are citizens, all the
So
citizens in
what?
Sri Lanka?
So when it comes to the regulation mainly speaks about non-residents context. So it starts with applications of non-residents.
Non-residents.
So if it's
Okay.
non-resident, that's how the Gazette notification has been,
Even if it's a citizen?
So if, for example, Sri Lankan, assume that if I'm a Sri Lankan or dual citizenship, right? Then you are considered as a Sri Lankan. Assume that we have assume X person is Sri Lankan, but also he has a dual citizenship of another, right? So here we have to be mindful how the system works. We have a EROC system, which is basically the system that enables to incorporate companies in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
If he is not a Sri Lankan, then we have to enter the details of a passport number.
Okay.
And unique registration connects with a passport.
Okay.
If it's a Sri Lankan, it goes with the national ID card.
All right.
So, although it's connected to resident status, when it comes to registration at the Department of Register of Companies, the Register of Companies validation document is, if it's for foreigner, a passport, Sri Lankan, a national ID card. Okay. Even if you have a dual citizenship, if you have not obtained the national ID card, right, of the new identity card, then you are unable to connect yourself into the system. And practically speaking, Mr. Lahiru, we have to see the requirement of a foreigner and comes to investments, right? How to, if you select any of these types of investment which is restrictive, not restrictive, which is allowed to a certain level, or you can have 100% owned companies also, Mr. Lahiru. For example, there will be list which I just only mentioned 2, right?
Yes.
If you allow me, I can read all 10. Can I read it?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah. So basically, third one is mining and primary processing of non-renewable national resources.
All right.
Next one, timber-based industries using local timber. Deep sea fishing, mass communication, education, freight forwarding, travel agencies, shipping agencies. Those are the lists which are restricted.
So wait, so a foreigner cannot start a travel agency in Sri Lanka by themselves?
No, they can, but the shareholding can maximum 40%.
40%. All right. So the
Yes.
rest, now, in this case, I want to ask this question right here. Now, we'll talk about the different, now we are talking about the private limited type of incorporation, right? The vehicle. Yeah. So it's the private limited form. And let's say now you want to start a travel agency in Sri Lanka, and then you find a local partner that you trust, you maybe have known for some time. We have to get your advice on how to do that, what are the ways in which we can protect ourselves. So now if you give 60%, let's say you are putting actually 100% of your money, but just in order to satisfy this legal requirement, you are entrusting like 60% of the shares to this friend of yours or whoever that is there, your partner. And how do you protect yourself in such a circumstance? Like, is there another way you can protect yourself? Maybe a legal instrument, a document, an agreement outside of the shareholder agreement or the company register documents?
My advice would be to have a strong shareholders agreement.
Okay.
To protect the interest of the investors concerned, the foreign investors concerned.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying is there have been certain practices which had happens in the economy in Sri Lanka, which is having documents which are like MOUs, outside contract, secured loan arrangements. Those are practicing right now, but I would not recommend those. The reason is there is a new regulation that is basically outside the enforceability, because the exchange control regulation has a strict compliance requirement. If you violate, that's not we can't advise individuals to violate the specific provisions. And also, to add into that, we have an amendment to the Companies Act, very recent amendment, which basically requires identifications of the beneficial owner. Identification of the beneficial owner is a very different topic, but it's connect to this particular question that you ask. Assume that a 60% shareholder, but actually is not controlling. The one actually invests is the foreigner. In that context, still, if the secretary is concerned, secretary has to notify to the register of companies who's the ultimate beneficial owner of the company. So in sense, all those outside contract would contradict with that compliance requirement in future.
Okay.
The law has been passed, but the effective days has not been gazetted by the minister. So we have to be mindful. If you are a investor wants to invest in Sri Lankan business, that you have to make sure that the beneficial owner to be disclosed. So if you are 40% shareholder, you can go with 40% only. If you go beyond that, legally speaking, you have some certain conflicting laws that might not favorable to you.
So clearly understood. So in that case, why would someone from a foreign country or a non-resident or even a foreign investor who is not a citizen of Sri Lanka invest in those restricted or controlled industries or like type of businesses? What
For example,
what are the provisions or protections provided by the Sri Lankan government and the Sri Lankan legal framework to such investors? Because they could be easily hoodwinked, and for example, 60% giving your money away to Sri Lankan, maybe because of mutual trust and your long-term partnership or whatever. But if there's no legal remedy, if you can't take legal action against someone who violates that, uh, like friendship or trust, not based on a legal thing, what is the recourse? Like, I mean,
yeah, so it's a very good question. Sure. And one of the key thing is in a company, your investment can be what matters here is how much cash flow that you are investing to the company. Cash flow. To run a company, you need a cash flow. So you can have a minimum investment amount, but as an investor, you can provide not as a you can source the funds not as investment, but source the funds as a loan to the company.
like a
So if you
debenture.
provide not a debenture, for example, you
Okay.
can provide a personal loan to the company through
Okay.
IA account,
Mm-hmm.
or you can provide if it's a short period, you can through business foreign currency account, you can invest. So you can give that amount as a loan, not as investment. So what happens is you are providing the cash flow requirement of the business, but the
Mm-hmm.
company has a duty to repay you back. So there is always you have a control over your investment.
Okay, but in that case, are we still a shareholder or just merely a creditor?
At that point, when you provide such amount of sourcing, you provide you becomes a creditor,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you have a controlling. You can have a shareholders agreement which control or which have restrictively have certain control over the matters of the company. So
Okay.
these are the mechanisms, legal mechanisms that you can look into.
Okay, so
And
that's why you need a specialist to help you out in this area, specialist like you,
yes,
most probably. So I mean, because otherwise, if you try to get into this, like investing directly in a company or starting your own company in Sri Lanka. In fact, I have some friends who started some hotels and who later got into some trouble because they start purely like had traveled to Sri Lanka a couple of times and then met a few people who they started to like and trust, and then started businesses with them. I mean, uh, later on, things had got out of hand because they have not been properly legally consulted or advised. But there is, as you say, there are, as you say, solutions for this, and it's not something that should keep foreign investors away from investing in Sri Lanka, even though the system may seem a little bit more complex than like more developed economies in other countries where you can have 100% ownership in certain sectors. Uh, Right. Yes.
to add to you, Ms. Lahiru, for example, certain industries like
Yeah.
IT-based outsourcing companies, you can have 100% shareholding. for
Okay.
foreigners.
All right.
Even wholesale industries, you can have 100% shareholding. Import business, you can have 100% shareholding. So it's all about, we have mentioned in previously certain list of 10 listed nature of the business which has restriction of 40%.
Okay. All right.
Now, same way, there's another law, interesting law, since you have questions for hotels. Certain foreigners want to invest in hotels. They sometimes do not purchase the property under their name, because you can't purchase properties in Sri Lanka for
Exactly.
foreigners' name.
Exactly.
So there is a law called restriction or land alienation. So on that basis, what most of the foreigners does is they purchase under a Sri Lankan name, or foreign Sri Lankan resident's name. What you can do is you can set up a company, and through the company with less than 50% shareholding of the foreigner, such company can purchase the property.
Okay.
So the property purchased has certain available provisions, which through a company, at least you have certain control over the property.
But still, it's not controlling shares. The
Yeah,
controlling
it's less than
state.
50%. It has to be less than 50%.
Again, you have
What
that
the law
issue.
says, again, you have that issue. But what I'm trying to say is, I have experienced, Mr. Lahiru, some of the foreign clients comes, when we discuss, they have invested for certain, property in thinking that they have the property ownership to a certain level. But when we look into the details, actually speaking, the company has ownership of 50%,
Yes.
or certain time 40%, but then the property, which is what's valuable of the investment, is with someone else.
Okay, that's a risk again when it comes to investing in land. Is this the same with residential properties, or only limited to
This is
commercial
for
properties?
immovable property. This is for
This
immovable property.
any type of
For land, not for the condominium, but for other kinds of any land related. It is applicable. It's not
as
applicable for the lease.
Mhm.
It is not applicable for the lease, but for lands. And it's basically the purchase of the land that what connects.
All right. So I mean,
Here the context is that the law requires now the beneficial owner to be verified.
okay,
You can't have directly or indirectly have control. So
okay,
so you have to find the ultimate beneficial of the shareholders. So if it's you that controls, obviously you becomes the party to the party in terms of beneficial ownership. So this is a
yes.
very new regulation, which going to be implemented very soon. This is
All
part
right.
of
So
IMF financial transaction
it's
reporting.
something like lifting the corporate veil. This is what we
Yes,
learned in
yes,
company law. So
yes,
you have to be, even if you are, so the subsidiary modality or the method will not also work in the future. All right.
yes. And I would say certain areas, for example, if you wish to bring very good investment to Sri Lanka, you can look at the board of investments as another mechanism,
Okay.
uh, rather than you directly go for a straight away company incorporation. So if you go for a high level of investment, you can go with section 17, so the BOI, or section 16, which is less kind of investment.
Okay.
So what facilitates here is that we have certain restrictive percentage, like 40% percentage, ownership companies that we have, this nature of the business that we discussed, Mr. Lahiru, earlier.
Yes.
Those businesses, you can make a proposal. The board of investments would be able to evaluate your investment thresholds, performances, requirements, how much you try to invest. Based on that, you can speak with the authorities and try to negotiate a percentage of increase. That's basically based on the special requirement. And those kinds of approvals, with that approvals, you can increase your investment or the ownership percentage.
All right. So if you go through the BOI mechanism, and
Yeah.
that means you have to, of course, get approval from the government and bring in a sufficient amount of capital. I think a significant amount of capital, maybe over 5 million USD, or maybe even more than that.
Mainly speaking, if I give you a rough range for section 16, it's 250,000 US dollars.
Okay, it's not that
And
high.
section 17, it's minimum with IT projects, 1 million US dollars, and 3 million US dollars is for strategic development projects. So if you have a section 17 or more, you can get more concessions, more, tax concession, custom duty concession, corporate income tax concessions. You can have a bit of a concession. For example, it's a specific, you go to the BOI and say, look, here, I want to invest. This is what I'm going to bring, what the government can offer me, a good rate. It's a negotiation.
So if as a foreigner, let's say I want to acquire a company that is already established and has multiple property holdings under its name, is that completely excluded for me just because I'm not a citizen of the country? Or is there a way of acquiring that company? Either directly, let's say as a direct shareholder, or through, let's say, another company incorporated in a foreign company, in a foreign country. Let's say I have a company outside of the country and then I want to acquire a local company established in Sri Lanka.
For example, these are two scenarios. First
Okay.
scenario is, the first scenario is where you as a foreigner try to purchase certain company
Yes.
by purchasing the stake by way of shares.
Yes.
So first thing is,
As
if
an
what is
individual.
as an individual
Yes.
foreigner, the process would be to do a due diligence, see whether the company is, the nature of the business is, compliance with the exchange control regulations, if such, and also if there is a property involved in such company, you can't have more than 50% the
Oh,
company.
that's basically what I wanted to get to. So the same
Yes,
rules will apply.
same rules are applicable. So you have to do a
Mm.
compliance, you have to do check whether it's possible. It's all about compliance. The law requires the maintenance of the status of the shareholding of, of a company where there's a foreign shareholder. Always percentage of foreign shareholder or holding has to be less than 50% if you have properties under the name of the company.
Okay. And let move to the second part of the question.
Second process would be, it's a
If
company.
yeah, if you are a
Same,
company, foreign entity, the same rules
same,
apply.
same rules apply regardless, because it's foreign nationality or individual, or considers on that context, foreign context. So the same rule applies.
All right. So basically, under the law, natural persons and legal fictions, both are treated the same.
Yeah, foreign, same applicability regardless of the individuality of whether this is or an individual or a business entity.
Okay, that's a bit tough. So all these mergers and acquisitions that take place in Sri Lanka, either they go through get special permission from the government from this section 16 and 17 provisions as you mentioned,
No,
or
section 16 and 17 are for the investments of Board of Investments. So
okay.
section 16 is at the time of investment, what you get from
Mm,
the Board of Investment.
yeah.
It's not related to mergers and acquisition. So
Okay.
Board of Investment is a facilitation
Yes.
center.
Okay.
With that facilitation, you can have ease of doing business.
All right.
Section 16, it's simpler form of uh, requirements, which is basically for 250,000 US dollar investment threshold,
Mm.
where you get the basics of BOI support or facilitation. For section 17, which is more of a high level of investment, which has certain concession that you can demand as an investor. Sorry. So section 16 and 17 is of Board of Investments facilitation, and mergers and acquisitions are completely different. For example, what happens is, it's internally two companies merge in Sri Lanka, or one company acquires another company,
Mm.
right? So when you acquire another company, yes, obviously you have to look into that element of shareholding, foreign shareholding percentage, and also your compliance with exchange control regulation. So it's that's the due diligence requirement. If there's a foreign
Mm.
shareholder involved, you need to have the due diligence to make sure that it's compatible with the exchange control regulations and restriction on land alienation law.
Yeah.
That's the
So
compatible law requirement.
so to summarize that point, even in the the companies or the individuals who are willing to invest in Sri Lanka, who are not considered as Sri Lankan or Sri Lankan entities, have to comply with the same regulations as you mentioned before. It's the
Yes,
same whether you want to start a business or whether you want to acquire or merge with a business. Simple as
yes,
that.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And now moving on to, let's say, an individual, right? Suppose that I'm a foreigner, I'm the son or the daughter, and my father is a Sri Lankan, right, who has started a very rich business in Sri Lanka and or successful or otherwise, and now the father and the parents have passed away. And in such a situation, what are the rules of succession? Does it apply? You are not Sri Lankan, like in this case, I'm not a Sri Lankan, so can I like own shares? Am I entitled to the shares of that company? Let's say if it also has these issues as to ownership of land and property and other restricted and permitted businesses. What is the situation there?
So the exception here is that inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
Inheritance allows certain amount, certain the ownership to be transferred
Mm-hmm.
through inheritance to a
Okay.
non-resident and also. But when it comes to repatriation of the money back to that respective country, there is certain annual amount that you can repatriate amount that's going to be restricted,
Okay.
and certain compliance of the central bank compliance or approvals are needed for that kind of a repatriation of money back to a foreign country.
So it's possible because
It's possible.
it
This
works as
inheritance is allowed to a certain level with approvals.
with approval. So it has to be dealt case by case basis.
Yes.
All right, so that is nice to hear because let's say you have a father in Sri Lanka who has built this multinational or huge company, even if it's not a huge company, if it's just one property business or one small hotel, and you are a foreigner, and you've never acquired Sri Lankan citizenship. It is a real situation. It's a real problem for many Sri Lankans, my friends, even foreigners who are parents are Sri Lankan, but they are not Sri Lankan. And they have companies, they have property, but they cannot acquire the property. So in such situations, for people who are listening, there is an exception. There are ways that you can inherit your parents' property, even though you are not Sri Lankan. And as you said, if you can clarify a little bit more about expatriation of profits or shares or any capital amount or equity or cash from Sri Lanka to your nation, what are the rules and procedures involved? Are there any restrictions? Anything that we should
There are
take note of?
restrictions. There it's based on the types of banking account that you have. Based on the types of banking account, there are certain restrictions and allowed repatriation amount per annum and per unit per time. So that there is always, when it comes to investment type, you have different types of banking accounts that you are going to be able to use investments. Right? IIA have very less restrictive in terms of investing into Sri Lanka, and repatriation also somewhat easier. But there are different types of which you had to consult the bankers at the time of opening up the account. And one of the key element here is, Mr. Lahiru, the underlying transactions of repatriation of money. That's a key question. If you do not bring your money in legal channel, don't expect the money to be repatriated back in the legal channels.
Hmm.
So that's why we advise all the time, if you invest in Sri Lanka, use the banking channels, the commercial banking channels. For example, if you set up a company, use IIA account for investment. If you invest for a short-term loan, you can use business foreign currency account to the investments that you can repatriate those funds. So you have always underlying transaction that has to be justified to the banker to say, look, this is where I got the money, this is where I'm taking the money. This is my document pertaining, which is my profits, dividends. You have, for example, you have to get the tax clearances to take
Mhm.
the money out from the dividends. So you have to provide a supportive document. So it's very simply provide the justified document. We call underlying transaction related to the repatriation of money.
Okay, that is very clear now. when it comes to taxes, and is there anything that you would like to add relating to taxes? Is there any special taxation like treatment or like regimes for foreigners and investments? Are there any benefit schemes? Are there any like let us say overburdening of foreigners, for example, like the benefits or like differential
Mm,
treatment?
I do not have much to complain on such. IRB
Mm,
anyway would require certain, payments, outward payments comes, there are certain requirements.
mhm,
But what matters in any what you need to as an investor, what you need to look at is if you're looking at investment, you have to decide your calculations of the internal revenue taxes. So that's also part of your planning, I would say.
mm.
So for example, you have to decide, you have to have a tax consultant, you can have accountants doing your accounts, so legal doing legal work, secretarial doing secretarial. So likewise, you need to surround yourself with different professional services that to plan your business, because if that's, I think, one of the key element here,
Mm.
in terms of foreign investments. Otherwise, a lot of businesses are, would find difficulties. It comes to planning of repatriating money back to their respective countries if they don't have a proper planning.
Okay, so planning is essential from the very beginning. And
Yep.
coming back to very quickly BOI or any other schemes that are available which provides tax exemptions for, let's say, investments which goes beyond a certain capital requirement or above a capital requirement. Is there a procedure like that available?
It's not. It's first, for example, if your investment value is high, and if you're a strategic investment to Sri Lanka, and you can propose your project proposal, and there's charges for evaluating those proposal, and then the government or the BOI would provide you concession rates.
Okay.
It's all about based on your amount of investment proposal. It's a negotiation. You have to negotiate a good term.
All right. So it's again a case by case
It's a case by
situation.
case. You
All
can't
right.
have a guarantee thing about. For example, Section 16, you don't get much concession. It's a small facilitation on. You can't get tax concessions. You can't get custom duty, other kinds of reliefs under Section 16. Only Section 17 you'll be able to get certain financial concessions.
Okay. So these strategic strategically important investments. Is
Yeah.
there a list of this published by the government
Yes, I think
regularly?
Invest Sri Lanka is the website. They have, even very recent, they have set up a portal, online portal
Mhm.
for foreigners to submit their proposal. I mean, to get more information. Sri
Okay.
Lanka is heading for a digital economy. I think it's a good initiative.
Yes.
Mostly, certain digital portals are connected, and there's a facilitation is also good.
So slowly, Sri Lanka is becoming investor friendly.
Yes,
That is good
uh,
news.
that's they have a portal also now.
Okay. Thank you very much for that information. And I know that you travel the world, especially Asia, China, and BRICS countries. Anything that you would like to add from your experience in those countries, how they manage to attract investment at such a scale and develop at such a rapid speed compared to Sri Lanka? Anything that you want to see as reforms in Sri Lanka which would help to attract more foreign investors? Because as far as I see, in terms of potential, Sri Lanka, due to its strategic position and also its human resource capacities and also natural resources, many factors, it's a prime place for investing. I mean, of course, there are macroeconomic and political instability issues which are common to frontier markets all around the world. But from any other indicators, from HDI to literacy rates to, I mean, other than the recent debacle we had with the economy, we have been performed continuously. Even the stock exchange has been growing 14% per annum CAGR. I mean, that is impressive, even more faster, it has a better growth rate than S&P 500. And in that context, would you like to see a change in Sri Lanka to attract foreign investors and also get NRSLs to invest more confidently in the country?
I think one of the key elements that I'm looking at would be the potential would be to create NIC or E identity is very important. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you have a E entity, E identity, it's easy for bank account opening. You can use more for digital frameworks for account opening, and digital cashless economy would be
Okay.
facilitate more of economic growth. I have
Mm-hmm.
seen when it comes to foreign, I mean, most of all the countries, they whoever who have a digital systems
Mm-hmm.
have ease of doing business.
Yes.
Mr. I have complaints from foreign clients who coming in terms of bank account opening, how much application that they have to fill again and again. For X bank, they have to fill the same application, and another bank they have to do the same KYCs.
Exactly.
If you can have one eKYC of certain foreigner, right?
Mm.
Connect simply, you decide the bank, you agree with the terms and conditions, you do the banking transactions.
Yeah.
So it's you have to make things simplify. I think government is working on that to create identity context. I think that's very much useful for the ease of doing business in Sri Lanka, and also digitalization process.
Yeah.
What I've experienced is that although we have EROC system, there is a delay on the department side because it's human. But where you can have more digital enabler in the system, which can facilitate high efficiency. The approval should be specific time frame. So those are the things the government should really look into, having an IT framework, but also to have a human resource enabler with accountability. Look, you
Mm.
deliver this X amount of work in X amount of time. I don't see it in the government office, which is sad to say, but that is the truth.
Mm.
The government need to really look into and put frameworks. Certain times approvals takes months. It's that should be stopped, and the government
Okay.
should really look into
And I think the
way.
current government is looking into that through their digitalization initiative. It's a totally holistic digitalization framework for the government and a system. Other than systematic changes and adding new technologies into the processes, any regulatory changes that you would like to see, or are you satisfied with the current level of restrictions? And sometimes you might even see very harsh controls of certain industry sectors and ownership options.
I think more than the regulatory framework is the ease of working it out. Mr. Lahiru, that
Hmm.
what matters. So organizations, you should have a simplified, payments for EPF, ETF, tax filing,
Hmm.
register of companies filings, those kinds of necessary fundamental doing business works should be
Yeah.
connected and simplified,
Okay.
starting with tax,
Okay.
starting with bank account. So
Hmm.
that's what matters. If you see
So
Singapore, there is of it's expensive to run their business in Singapore. Their cost is high, but still, why people prefer to go to Singapore? Because it's efficiency and speed.
yeah, I've never
How
managed to check this, but in Singapore also, sorry for disturbing, do they have these land ownership restrictions, company share restrictions in Singapore and even places like China? Is it similar to Sri Lanka?
I cannot comment because they
Mm.
all have China for sure. China they have restrictions on certain, like Sri
Mm.
Lanka, you have certain regulations on listed
Yeah.
natures, restricted natures. Even for
Yeah.
Singapore, they have certain things. For Singapore, you have to have a Singaporean to be part of that company. That's kind
Mm.
of their engagement. But I'm not going to comment much on the foreign jurisdiction since those outside my advisory.
Competencies,
Yeah,
capacities. Okay.
yeah, capacity and other than that. But what I feel is the ease of working in Singapore secretariat registration processes, and foreign countries, even in Dubai, it's more of digitalized. So what we really need to look into is the system or the regulations should accommodate such. Those are my personal observations.
Yeah, with my experience in Dubai, the system is digitalized, but it can still be improved, especially when it comes to physical licensing and stuff like that. Um, and coming back to very quickly, intellectual property, if I may
Mhm.
ask. Now, let's say you want to transfer technology, or you want to open a franchise in Sri Lanka, or you want to like sell, let's say, a patented product. I know it's a very broad and topic that I'm talking about, and it's very difficult to give a precise answer within a short time. But what is the guarantee for intellectual property protection within the Sri Lankan framework? Are there any restrictions on these things as well?
So in terms of intellectual property related, the intellectual property office, Sri Lanka is National Intellectual Property Office, has a territorial jurisdiction. It's in Sri Lanka only.
Mm.
So your rights are protected within the territories of Sri Lanka, and you can enforce certain, for example, if you have a priority registration in other outside countries, you can consider those things in terms of your registration, because we are part of World Intellectual Property Organization WIPO as well.
Okay.
But with Sri Lankan context, we have when it comes to kind of investments, we have that mechanisms for IP protection as well.
Mm.
So if you are a foreigner who wants to invest in Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan, within the territories of Sri Lanka, we have certain laws which governs the protections of intellectual properties. Even unfair competition, we can stop unfair competitive practices. Some of your even employee or whoever does, even on the Intellectual Property Act itself has provisions of unfair competition. So
All right.
it's more of, we have regulations, we have the laws, and what matters is to make it ease of doing business. I think no one wants Mr. Lahiru to go and file action in courts.
Absolutely. Coming,
That's
coming,
the worst
that's
point, or the
that's
least expected point. So what matters here is that precautions have, plan yourself. Look, if this is my business, how am I going to protect my intellectual properties?
hmm
And what's my tax obligations, what are my statutory obligations towards employees? So how am I, file my compliance basis? Those are things that one should plan and you know clarify before starting anything else.
All right, brilliant. So one again legal gymnastic question. Now it could be even straightforward. Let's say now you want to open a retail business which is below 5 million, but since you are not allowed to open a retail business, but you have the brand name, and people would come to these shops and to buy from these shops because of your brand name. Let's say you get a local partner, and the local partner opens a retail business on behalf of you. You are not disclosed as a beneficial owner or anything. But then you come to Sri Lanka, and can you protect your brand name under your name and then lease it out to this business to run for you?
Your question is not clear to me.
So let's say you have a trademark,
Hmm.
which is a retail trademark, right?
Okay.
And you don't have more than 5 million USD, right? Let's say you want to do a trial run or something like that in Sri Lanka, and you set up business, but since you are not allowed to do retail business, right? And you can't also become a beneficial owner in that sense. Uh, let's say you give a loan to open a business to a Sri Lankan person, entity, and then they establish a company, right? And but my question is, can you hand over your trademark with confidence, right, to this new company, right, who is also funded through your loan, right, and protect your trademark, for example, trademark for your technology or whatever.
If it's a trademark, I think you are the owner of the trademark, which is a foreigner. You can register trademark under the name. Your trademark should be applied by you, a foreigner
Hmm.
or foreign
Okay.
entity.
Okay.
So then you can give a license to use that mark.
Okay. And even
Or you
sell
can,
products under that mark in that shop.
basically, what you do is you give authority a representation to use that mark, but you're not doing, the business. It's like a
Yes,
franchise. For
exactly.
example, KFC and all, they have franchise business, right?
Yeah.
So the parent company which owns the trademark, but for using, you franchise those brand names, you can have a franchise agreement, or you can allow to be a representative or authorized representative of the mark and do the business, and you can collect your royalties. So to be in terms of business context, you are not doing a business in Sri Lanka, you are doing a facilitation of a franchise. So you provide
So
authority
this
of,
franchise
of
modality is then also very interesting for foreign investors.
yeah, obviously it's another way that one can look into. Most of the foreign companies that provide such, they keep their trademark registration under their name, because in the day it's very much important.
So you can register trademark even if you're a foreigner under
Yes,
any type of category of classes.
yes, you
It's
have
not
45
restricted.
classes.
Yes.
No, it's not restricted. For example, we have 45 classes in Sri Lanka, which is mostly we call a nice classification.
Hmm.
Nice classifications are worldwide,
Yes.
WIPO approved classifications.
Hmm.
So mostly your business is mostly compatible with the Sri Lankan classes as well.
Okay.
So you can apply the registration here under the foreign capacities. There is no restriction on in terms of NIPO regulations.
So the exchange regulation
It's
restrictions,
not,
it doesn't apply.
yes.
Okay.
So foreign exchange is only applicable when there is investments of
Hmm.
money inflows that is happening of non-residents.
Okay. So they
So
don't
here is
they
it's
don't
a registration.
consider intangible assets as an
Yes,
investment.
yes. Here it's a registration of a brand. It's registrations of a intellectual property, right?
Yes. So transferring of technology, transferring of the right to use the brand, which is franchising, the recipes or whatever you have, is capable through a contract, a separate contract, even
You can.
without having ownership of that company.
So, for example, if it's a transfer of intellectual property, there might be certain exchange of funds that is going out from straight out, outward towards a foreign entity. It's a
Yeah.
transfer of
Yeah.
intellectual property, but licensing is different. Transfer is different. So you have a
Okay.
very different. You have to understand what's the legal requirements and the difference between each types of
Okay.
transaction.
All right. So that's we should, I think, meet again about these topics. And I've been keeping you for a long time with us. And before you go, I would like you to very simply say the type of vehicles or like type of legal entities that are available to foreigners and non-resident Sri Lankans, for example, in private limited companies, sole proprietorship. If you can very quickly give us a summary, because I feel like we missed that part at the beginning because we jumped into a little bit more complex topic.
For example, one of the most safe vehicle would be a company.
Okay.
Company is the structure of engagement because it provides separate legal existence, the ability to present the company itself,
This is the
and
private limited company.
private limited company because foreigners are unable to have sole proprietorships and partnership business.
Okay.
And the companies, you can have a joint venture partners, joint venture projects, and
Mm.
private public partnerships projects with the government involved projects. So you can have multiple vehicles, you can have special purpose vehicles which can be created based on your requirement. So one of
Mm.
a key element I would say is that always try to see what's the purpose that I'm trying to solve,
Mm.
what's the problem that I'm trying to solve, what are the solutions that I it is available to solve that problem. And it's that problem that you're trying to solve will identify the right types of structure that you can use. It can be individual investment, it can be a joint project investment, a consortium project investments. For example, big projects, if you see in Sri Lanka, it's a investments of many, not one or two, it's multiple. So you have to structure the amount requirement based, and also the structure. Those are is a case by case. Evaluating what types of structure that you should select is based on the amount, the capacity of requirement, the continuance of the business project. Is it a special type of a work?
Mm.
whether this type of business will continue for the rest of the time, or is this one-time transaction that you are providing setting up this company. So there are a lot of things that you need to be uh, looked into.
Okay. All right. So, and I think we covered a lot of topics today. And if you do need individual clarification of these topics, or these, maybe you have a legal issue, maybe you have an interest, you can always look at the description below and find contact details of Mr. Dinushka and also myself, and stay in touch with us, and then we can do whatever within our capacities and legal competencies and permissions and licenses to help you out. And so, thank you very much again, Mr. Dinushka, for joining with us today. I mean, it
It's
has
a
been a
pleasure, Mr.
pleasure.
Nair. It's a pleasure
Thank,
mine. Thank you for
thank,
inviting me.
thank you very much. I hope to see you soon again. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye bye.